gosh.
Bricklin SV-1 and Mr. Bricklin himself, let's just say, have an interesting past with various successes and failures as the founder of over 30 companies. In 2005, the New York Times said of Bricklin, quote, "He's often likened to the automotive version of P.T. Barnum," which I thought was pretty cool. Now, this guy has also been featured in Auto Week, Rolling Stone, countless documentaries, and automotive news outlets around the world. So when this one surfaced in Connecticut, I had to go see it for myself. From the looks of it, it hasn't been moved or touched in a very long time, and it's covered in bird seeds, bird poo.
The most bird poo I've ever seen. Oh, that's why right there.
And the most dust I've ever seen on a car. Now, most cars we find are dusty and dirty, no problem there, but they always seem to have their doors closed. This one, on the other hand, was propped open for years, making it an open invitation not only for dust and dirt, but for other creatures I'm sure we're going to find later on. So I had to ask the owner the story behind acquiring the Bricklin, and more importantly, why did he leave the door open all these years?
Bought it new, have had it ever since, from 1974 till present. Followed me around my various residences. Well, when I buy a car, I usually keep it. It's been open for photography, but I propped one door open because I knew that if the battery went dead, and it has an air door system alteration to the hydraulic doors with which it was built. But I wanted to be sure that I could get into the vehicle should the battery die and or the air go out of the air door system so they wouldn't pop up. Been sitting here 21 years untouched, uncovered and untouched.
So as he mentioned, the doors were a huge source of anxiety and frustration during the manufacturing process because although they looked very cool, they actually weighed 90 pounds each because they contained all of the trim, the glass, the side impact protection not found on the Mercedes Gullwing, which of course was much lighter. All of this weight was supported by two high-pressure gas struts and an electric motor that would regularly burn out and essentially lock the passengers inside, or at least make it super challenging to get out, and you would have to basically do a side extension of 90 pounds with one arm while sitting slightly reclined, so crazy hard to do. Before moving the car, we needed to clean out the garage and plan our strategy for maneuvering around the wooden column. And after cleaning the path a bit, we tried to fill up the tires to help the wheel skates lift the rubber off the ground, meaning they weren't dragging as we were pushing them, to make life easier as we pushed it towards the door. Keep in mind, these tires still had the factory new stickers on them, but being so old and left outside, it's very unlikely that they're going to hold air for very long. Once the Speed Sport tuning truck arrived, we had to trim a few branches off the entrance to avoid scratching the heck out of the trailer as it backed its way all the way into the barn. To get the Bricklin into place, Carlos used a jack and four skates to swing it around so that the trailer winch could pull it through the small opening, which was much more difficult than it looked on camera. The trick here was to pull it up a few inches, then readjust, then pull it up a few inches, then readjust, and so on, because the wheels were actually bumping into either side of the garage opening or the column, so it was a bit of a pain in the butt. Also keep in mind, at this time in the morning, it was 17 degrees Fahrenheit during the extraction. It just made everything 10 times harder. As we got the Bricklin outside a little bit, the driver's side wheel broke free and it went up the trailer a little bit easier before heading back to the studio. During the journey home, the tires lost a little bit of air that we had just put in, and pushing it inside the trailer was not an option. So we skated two of the wheels inside the tight trailer, which was yet another project in and of itself, but eventually we got it inside the bay. The next day, under the lights, you can really see the amount of bird poo, bird seeds, and the level of dust and dirt that was so far past disgusting that it was dangerous, and it had a really strong pungent odor, which I think was from sitting overnight in the heat. To keep the gull wing doors open, we used a metal camera rig and a light stand to prop them up. Now, if this were to come down, it would absolutely break your arm or likely sever your finger or cut you up pretty bad, and it was a real concern of ours. As you can see, the interior was off the charts moldy and unsafe to be in without a mask. The engine, same thing, but this time it was filled with mouse droppings and acorns everywhere. The trunk clearly hadn't been opened in forever. It had a door panel and a car cover that were caked in mouse poo and seeds, and the carpet was completely dry rotted.
So what makes these sort of lost cars, barn finds, however you want to describe it, so interesting to me is that there's always like a story. There's always something interesting going on within the car. There's two things here that are noteworthy. The first is pretty basic. The carpets are toast, meaning I can't even shampoo them. Look how quickly I'm barely touching it. It pops right off. So we're going to have to remove all of this and then see what's underneath it and play with that. But the second thing is a little bit more interesting. Look here. There's overspray, yellow, let's call it for lack of a better word, here too, on the strut. And there's another one underneath. Now, that doesn't sound so interesting, but when you know a little bit about the history of the car, right on the lock there you can see. So why that's so special is if you can see the colors, it indicates that it's been painted at some point, but that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because underneath this fiberglass on top is acrylic, and this model car came in 4 or 5 colors of acrylic. So if you think about it, like the acrylic is the color. That's what made it so fascinating. That's what made it so safe. SV-1, Safety Vehicle 1. So why is there sort of touch-up or overspray? I'm not exactly sure, but anyhow, this is why I love doing these cars. There's a weird story, there's something out there, so I'm gonna talk to the owner. Maybe I'll reach out to Mr. Bricklin himself and figure out what's going on with this particular car.
Step one is pretty simple. I just vacuumed up all the poop and the leaves and removed all the nests to avoid having that fall on the ground and choke my floor drains before using compressed air to kind of dislodge any of the trapped junk. Next, I filled the Pro Foamer with Frothy, hooked up the compressed air line, and soaked the paint to dislodge the heavy grime before filling my bucket with water and a microfiber towel to agitate the paint. At first, I tried to be a little bit careful because we couldn't get the window up on the driver's side and pretty much every seal leaked, so no problem. But half an hour later, I changed my mind and I decided a little bit of water on the interior is worth the benefits of the pressure washer. After drying and blowing the seams, the car was about 20 pounds lighter, but my garage floor was a total mess. Once the heavy junk from the outside was removed, I then propped open the front doors and the trunk to remove the carpets. Once I pulled the carpet, noticed the mouse poop, the seeds, and the lovely white maggot-looking creatures living under the biohazard rug. While vacuuming the last of the poo up off the floor of the trunk, I found an acorn under the panel, which can only mean one thing. Now, check this out. The door jambs and rain channels are obviously clogged up, but one of my favorite things to do on these types of cars is to hit it with compressed air until it blows all the way through the system, which is awesome. Now, I did that before vacuuming up the rest of the jams, then scrubbing them with Frothy in a brush for round one of defunkification. Much the same as the trunk, the interior carpets had to be removed as well. When I was doing that, underneath the carpets, I found what the owner said he had lost many, many years ago.
Oh, stay in there. Look at this. Look what I found underneath. That was underneath the cushion.
Why keys were under the rug? I mean, the carpets, not the floor mats. They were under the rugs. I don't understand why they were there, but okay.
Spare set of keys he lost.
Then I removed the brake cover to find yet another nest with a live maggot inside. The whole thing was drenched in mouse urine. Absolutely
This is why
disgusting.
we have to, oh, look at that, look at the maggot, which is still alive. This is why we're yanking the carpet out. You'd be crazy to shampoo this. I'm never gonna be able to go home and again. Ugh, it's another maggot.
And for those of you who are going to ask why I didn't remove the seats, they were rusted to the floor and I just could not get them to move. So I did the best I could to remove the heavy bacteria under the circumstances with a steamer and shag. The before and after on the seats were incredible. Check out the layer of black grime covering the e-brake handle. Now my suspicion is this was sort of like a walkway or a hallway for the mice living underneath the armrest area. Absolutely vile. Once I bagged all the carpets, the studio smelled 10 times better, which I believe is directly related to the mouse urine odor. The next day, and after I burned my clothes, I started polishing the shell of this unique body with the yellow pad and the yellow polish, and after a few minutes, the difference was incredible.
Okay, at this point, I've polished the surface here and you can see huge difference before and after. Now, during this process, I sort of learned a few different things, noticing that there are some chips and some cuts in the paint and you can see color coming through. So I said, okay, let's back up a little bit. In one of the videos that I saw in my research online, Malcolm Bricklin talks about why this is so unique. And the thing that he mentioned was the inside and the frame of the car, let's call it, is fiberglass. And on top of that fiberglass is an acrylic sort of tub. He mentions in the video that pretend like it's a shower tub that your bath fitters put in, that kind of concept back in the day. That was a big deal, just in the shape of a car. I said, okay, got it. The next step is with that acrylic cover or the shell on top, you can cut it or gouge it in theory. And because it's, in this case, let's call this mustard. I can't remember the name of this color, but whatever the color is, it's through and through, meaning you gouge it and you can see the same color all the way through versus a normal car that's on the street. And let's say it's white and you scratch it underneath, you see black. That sort of concept, it doesn't work here because of this shell. Now, during the polishing process, something popped up. I noticed right here, there's a little bit of overspray, a little bit of dripping there. I said, okay, interesting. And then if you look down here, you can really see that there's fiberglass underneath, and then on top there's this shell, this tub of acrylic. Okay, so far so good. But once I saw this up here, I noticed that obviously there's a different color underneath, which to me doesn't make sense if this is acrylic on top and it's not painted. So then I said, okay, if this is painted, That's more logical because we have the drip, we have that. Then I did a bit more research and found out that when you paint acrylic, you can in fact do it, but if you do it improperly, it doesn't work. So what you need to do when you paint acrylic is to put a primer or a sealer, let's call it, on top of it. Then you can change the color. Then you can update or keep it the same thing. If it doesn't, and you don't put primer, things like this happen right here. You can see that there's cracks. So that's one of the common issues. Now that doesn't mean this hasn't been primed, but there are cracks here. And from what my research was saying is if you don't put the primer on and then paint it, acrylic is not like normal, regular metal substrate, and you're gonna have a bunch of issues. So to me, these kinds of things make it exciting. I love doing the Ferraris and Lamborghinis and all that kind of stuff as my daily job, but I love getting into these because it kind of stretches the brain a little bit. Anyhow, the paint is looking good. We're gonna roll through. It's more of a chalkiness that we're removing, so it's actually not that difficult, and it's coming out pretty good. I actually like this car.
Once the acrylic was exfoliated, next was the trim. To do this, I used Titan 12 degreaser and an old toothbrush, while Dan played with metal polish on a drill to clean up the rims as best we could. After removing the heavy oxidation and chalkiness, I applied Reflex Pro to slow the rate of future oxidation and potential chalkiness. Plus, I wanted to see how good it would look on acrylic and black trim, especially those huge safety bumpers. The shine and the feel was very similar to that of single-stage paint for those of you who have played with Pro on older single-stage cars. Then I quickly cleaned the disgusting glass with a scrub pad, squeegee, final wipe towel, and obey. It's amazing what clean glass can do for the overall look of a car. Finally, I added mud tire dressing to the trim and the tires. Now, obviously, these tires should not be driven on, but I wanted to give this some extra pop or whatever for the owner when he comes in. I wanted to kind of surprise him. Same thing on the interior. It was bone dry, so I added interior plastic and leather conditioner to bring a bit of life and color back to the interior skin. When all was said and done, the Bricklin looked 1,000 times better, particularly the paint. And although not ready for Pebble Beach, removing the smell, the poop, the nests, and critters have given this forgotten car a chance at a new home. My goal is to at least get someone to visualize themselves behind the wheel of this particular car and be willing to go down the proverbial mouse hole to get this piece of history back on the road once again. A few months later, I invited Robin back to the studio to see his Bricklin.
Hey, there he is.
Hi,
Thanks for
Larry.
coming over.
Good.
There
oh my
it
God.
is.
It looks just like it was when I got it at the garage when I bought it.
Crazy, right?
1974. Wow. God, you did a miracle with on the outside. It's one fabulous looking.
Interior, we took out all the moldy.
Did you get all the mice stuff out of there?
All the mice, all back here. It was absolutely packed underneath.
Yep. Okay.
Was full of mouse nests. I mean, probably 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah.
We cleaned up the smell a whole lot and then removed the carpet as well.
I see that.
Just because
Well
it
done. Needed
it just
that.
disintegrated. Otherwise, the paint came out pretty good. It
Paint
shined
came out
up.
pretty good, yeah.
Overall, you happy?
I'm very happy. I haven't seen it like this since I drove it in the garage 22 years ago,
That's awesome.
and it hasn't been run since.
As always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and if you're interested in putting this Bricklin in your garage, read the description below for more information. Hope you enjoyed the detail, and talk to you soon.